Good afternoon. We're going to call the special meeting public hearing to order. Do apologize, we did have some technical difficulties. At this time, we're going to have our clerk read the roll.
Bolden.
Aye.
Boyes.
Aye.
Connor. Davis.
Aye.
DeShazier. Fusco.
Aye.
Garrett.
Present.
Hannah.
Aye.
Kamer. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Amobian. Somerville.
Aye.
Okay, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. We do have one item before us, and we'll have our clerk read that in.
Notice is hereby given that the following open comment public hearing will be held by the Council of the City of Akron on Thursday, September 11th, 2025, during a special meeting to be held at 1:30 p.m. Ordinance approving the certificate of appropriateness to demolish the former Firestone headquarters at 1200 Firestone Parkway. This notice was advertised on the Akron City Council website beginning September 4th.
Thank you. Mr. Antonucci?
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of council. The City of Akron is appealing the decision of the Urban Design and Historic Preservation Commission to deny a certificate of appropriateness to demolish the former Firestone Tire and Rubber Company Plant 1 building. The building was listed as an Akron Historic Landmark in 2013. The building was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 2014. In June 2024, the Akron Urban Design and Historic Preservation Commission issued a certificate of appropriateness for the demolition of the 3 rear wings of the structure. The entire front building, including the clock tower, was to be retained. Unfortunately, separating the front wing from the remaining structure while securing the building from both trespassers and weather is financially infeasible, and the city is applying for a certificate of appropriateness to demolish the entire structure. Plant 1 was built in 1910 as a factory and office building. According to the original nomination, the building was originally 19 bays wide, 18 bays deep, and 4 stories tall. Soon after completion, additional bays in the 5th floor were added. Before 1916, additional bays were added, as well as a new entrance placed at the base of an 8-story clock tower, producing the existing 46-bay, 5-story front facade. Each floor in the front east-facing wing is approximately 39,000 square feet, and the clock tower is approximately 6,300 square feet for a total of for a total of approximately 240,300 square feet of space. The size of the structure makes it difficult to secure and maintain. The building has been vacant for approximately 10 years. Various developers have gone through the building to see if it could be repurposed. Their consensus was that reuse is not feasible. Metal scrappers have been removing valuable wiring and piping for years. The building requires complete mechanical, electrical, and plumbing overhaul, creating another obstacle to redevelopment. The roof on the east front bay is badly deteriorated and leaks in multiple locations. Stormwater continues to damage the interior of the building. The roof is beyond repair, and a full roof replacement is required. A roof replacement is complicated due to its many large and leaking sawtooth stuck skylights, elevated mechanical rooms, and abandoned roof mounting equipment. All these components are obsolete and serve no useful purpose. The upper clock tower has half-inch and larger cracks from water intrusion and freeze and thaw. Cracked tower masonry continues to worsen and needs to be rebuilt. The entire building needs tuck pointing to prevent further water intrusion and damage. Structural columns and beams show signs of damage. Concrete casing around multiple columns and beams has spalled away or damaged from previous processes over the years. The adequacy of these columns and beams is unknown. Separating the front wing from the remaining structure and securing the building from both trespassers and the weather would be very expensive. The low bid for the demolition of the entire structure is $7.347 million. The low bid to separate and secure the front bay and demo the rear 3 bays is $12.349 million. It's a difference of $5 million. The entire structure is continuous at the basement and first floor level and doesn't become separated into wings until the 2nd floor. A new 650-foot-long masonry wall on new footings would be needed from the basement to the 2nd floor to enclose the building from the outside once the interior is exposed after demolition. All openings created by the removal of bridges and mechanical connections will need to be infilled. The roof will need to be replaced, including removal of all obsolete skylights, mechanical rooms, and rooftop equipment. Exterior tuck pointing is required throughout. Portions of the clock tower require masonry rebuilding. Structural analysis and probable repair are required at all damaged columns and beams. This all comes at a substantial cost for a vacant 240,000 square foot building that unfortunately does not have any realistic potential for redevelopment. Environmental covenants from the Ohio EPA hold that the building cannot be used for any residential, school, daycare, preschool, hospital, or residential care facilities, which eliminates the potential for mixed-use redevelopment of the property. The Cole Avenue extension, also known as Firestone Plaza, cul-de-sac was created and dedicated in 2018, and surrounding property was branded Firestone Business Park. The city rezoned this UPD 48 district in 2020 to eliminate residential uses by right and added industrial uses. Since then, significant industrial and commercial construction has taken place, including the Pleasant Valley Realty Industrial Building and Summit County Sewer Maintenance Building. As such, the city is of the opinion that adaptive reuse of the structure for mixed use or modern industrial use is not desirable or feasible. And from a proper land use standpoint, demolition for modern redevelopment of the site, consistent with the surrounding uses and zoning designation, is the only viable option. The city's position is that the demolition of the Firestone Plant 1 building meets the applicable criteria for issuance of a certificate of appropriateness for demolition, in that the historic landmark is so deteriorated that its integrity has been irretrievably lost, and that retention of the historic landmark is not technically or economically feasible. It's the city's contention that the property meets this criteria due to the extensive structural deterioration of the building, the prohibitive cost of partial demolition, security, and upkeep, and incompatible land use. On July 1st of this year, the Urban Design and Historic Preservation Commission voted to take time to review documents, primarily a feasibility study on the condition of the building by Haas and Staub Architects, and to take a tour of the building. The study was shared with the commission, and a tour of the building was conducted on July 30th of this year. Several members of the commission attended the tour. On August 5th, 2025, the commission, by a vote of 4-2, voted to deny the certificate of appropriateness to demolish the entire Firestone Plant 1 building. Commission member Mark Smith is here to discuss the commission's vote a little bit later. The City of Akron is requesting approval of the certificate of appropriateness for the for the demolition of the former Firestone Tire and Rubber Company Plant 1 building. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Julian?
Thank you, President Somerville, members of council. We have a few members of our staff here who are going to talk about a few different aspects of this particular property. We have Travis Capper, our city engineer, is going to talk about the third-party engineer's report, the feasibility study, and the process that we went through to arrive at the cost estimates where we're at. And then we have Sean Bowman from Economic Development, who will talk through efforts stretching back many years to find a new use for the building. With that, I'll turn it over to Travis. And then we also have Chris Luddle, Service Director, Susie Moore, our Economic Development Director, on hand to answer any questions. And then after the city staff talks here for a moment, then Mark Smith from the commission will have an opportunity to discuss that decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of council and council president. I'm Travis Capper, city engineer. And when we were tasked with looking at the demolition of this structure, we did reach out to Haas and Staub Architects to do a feasibility study on the front, basically front two wings, what you see from the street. They hired a separate structural engineering firm to look at. We looked at basically three options and estimated costs for those. One was to demolish the whole structure, all, 4 wings basically. One to keep the front 2 wings like we're talking about now, and one to keep just the clock tower. And the structural engineer looked at that, and basically the determination was, you could keep the front bay with, you'd have to do, build a wall in the back to seal it up, just like Mike Antonucci was talking about. But to look at just keeping the clock tower took extensive structural repairs and reinforcement, and a lot of things were just honestly unknown, which they recommended back not even keeping the clock tower and to demolish that. Now, anything can be done with amount of money, but it was far and beyond what we were looking at, so we deemed that infeasible. We bid it. We went out to bid, public bid, with 2 options, one to demolish the full structure and one to demolish basically the back 3/4 and keep those 2 front bays. And those bids came back, like Mr. Antonucci was talking, basically a $5 million difference to keep the front bays versus demolish the whole structure.
Yes, good afternoon, President and members of council. Sean Volman with the Economic Development Department. I'm going to take it back a little bit. I had some involvement with this deal from the beginning, from when we acquired ownership. Back in 2012, as part of the deal for Bridgestone to build the technical center in Akron, we agreed to buy the subject property as well as the old clubhouse and what is now the Russ Pry building for $5 million. At the same time, we entered into an option agreement with the company Akron Phoenix, also known as Amerimar, to sell those 3 buildings to them for $5 million for redevelopment. We closed on the property in 2013, and at that time as well, we agreed to certain use restrictions, such as it can't be used for a rival tire or rubber company. For some reason, it can't be a public forum. I don't fully understand what the impetus of that was, but that was in the agreement back in 2013. It was then added, named historic, so that Akron Phoenix, Amerimar could apply for historic tax credits for the redevelopment of the property. November of 2014, the option agreement was amended so that Akron Phoenix could separately buy each individual parcel instead of buying the entire amount for the $5 million. They ended up closing on what is now the Russ Pry building. Purchase price was $850,000, but did not ever purchase the remainder of the facility. In 2016, the mayor's office at that time put out an RFQ trying to determine interest in developing the property. Got one response back, was a combination from IRG and Welty. It's like a joint venture that recommended a mixed-use type facility, including residential and retail, some office. At the time, however, we had entered the property in the voluntary action program to clean it up. We got money from the state of Ohio to clean up the property. Part of the quid pro quo for that is you have to limit the use to commercial and industrial. And we put a covenant on the property to limit that use. That was finally all wrapped up in about 2020 when that finally got put on the property, and the property was rezoned, but it cannot be used. It cannot be used for residential uses under that environmental covenant. And then we've since that point in time, we did apply in 2023 to get funds from the state of Ohio for demolition. It was received. We got the approval in 2024. The new administration wanted to look at, and that was to demolish the entire building in '23. The new administration wanted to look at any kind of potential to save part of the building. The front bay, I think, was what it was ultimately looked at. So we started to prepare an RFP for that purpose. At the same time, we were trying to figure out if that would be feasible. With no point in putting out that RFP if it wasn't feasible. And engineering got the quotes that Travis mentioned. There would be $5 million more to keep the front bay than to demolish the entire thing. During that period as well, Economic Development had IRG, representatives from IRG go through the building as well, and they did not feel that it was something that they could take on and develop. So, thank you.
Mr. Smith, if you want to approach the podium to provide comments, you can.
Afternoon, everybody. My name is Mark Smith. I'm a registered architect in Highland Square, a practice called Design Management Architects. I'm also a member of the Urban Design Historic Preservation Commission. And the reason for coming down is by way of explaining a little bit of the reasons we had for the vote for denying the certificate of appropriateness for the Firestone No. 1 plant. There were a couple of reasons, actually. Last year, city agreed to seek developers for the front portion of Plant No. 1 structure as a condition of the removal of the rear 75% of the historic structure. A handful of developers were asked to look at the potential mixed use of the project, and as we found out, everybody declined to get involved in it. So ultimately, we rejected the motion because we saw little evidence of a concerted effort to market the potential project. What things that could have been done. Financial incentives, for example, to start. Did the city suggest tax incentives, property tax abatements? Did we outline the 45% State Historic Preservation Office and National Park Service construction cost tax credits that are available for a historic building like this? Did we look into a low-cost financing package for potential developers? I don't think we did any of that. Number two, site preparation and risk management. Were Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental assessments completed by the city or the county to reduce the uncertainty of a potential buyer getting into a potential mixed-use project? Did we outline the $10 million in brownfield redevelopment grants available for an adaptive reuse project? Did we enter into an Ohio EPA voluntary action program? I don't believe any of that happened. Zoning and regulatory support. Was it made clear that the zoning could be flexible to allow for a mixed-use development? Was an expedited permitting and appeals process even suggested to the potential developers? Community branding and support. Was Akron's strong history tied to the Firestone and Firestone Park neighborhood mentioned, and were branding opportunities around this considered? What about a city-led campaign to promote the site and potential investors and future tenants? So the real question is, where's the vision in the city's effort to market the redevelopment of the historic structure? Was there a survey taken of Firestone Park residents to even assess their level of civic pride and connection to the plant, which is a pretty important historical aspect of the building? Were colorful images and renderings employed to help developers envision what the project could be? We didn't see any of this as the UD and HPC. A legal point that needs to be considered also is, has a memorandum of agreement been negotiated with the State Historic Preservation Office? Per Elizabeth Murphy of the UDNHC, P&HC, the building can't be demolished without negotiating a memorandum of agreement with the State Historic Preservation Office. The current MOA doesn't allow for a complete demolition, and it must be renegotiated prior to any action by the city. On a more positive note, I suggested potential mixed-use development scenarios for the Firestone Plant 1 building, supporting historic ties with the Firestone Park neighborhood at our last UDN-HPC meeting. They are as follows: a heritage and cultural center, a mixed-use community hub, a recreation and wellness center, an education and workforce development center, an art and event venue, a gateway and visitor center. It was pointed out to me in the meeting that most of these are nonprofit and civic funding activities, which clearly would be an issue. Fair enough. So here's a quick list of more profitable possibilities for this building: a grocery, pharmacy, fast food outlet, dental clinic, primary care clinic, restaurants, cafes, gym, fitness center, drive-through beverage store, butcher, barbershop, hair salon, dry cleaners, pet care, child care, takeout pizza, sandwich, takeout sandwiches, farmer's market, hardware store, auto repair, gas station, bank, credit union, landscape and garden supply, furniture store, bookstore, gifts, small theater. So the point here being that there are plenty of potential uses for this building if we can get somebody to come in and take a look at it. At the very least, what I think most of us would like to see is that a pro forma is put together in a marketing package suggesting the possibilities to potential developers and run with it for a year or two. If it fails, go ahead and tear it down. At least we can say we actually made a legitimate effort at trying to save the building. So that's pretty much all I have. If there are questions, or I don't know how you want to run this.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll let you know if we have any additional questions. At this time, we're going to open up our public hearing. I'm going to ask all those who wish to participate in this hearing, if you'll please stand at this time so that you may be sworn in by our clerk.
Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, "I do."
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we are going to begin with those who wish to speak in favor of this item. And we're going to ask that you please approach the podium, those who wish to speak in favor. I know we do have one. Yes.
Good afternoon, Madam President, members of council. My name is Jeff Wilhite. I serve on Summit County Council and have been a life resident of the city of Akron. And I've come today to ask that we pump the brakes a little bit on this if we can. There's an old adage, measure twice, cut once, because once you start the demolition, obviously there's no turning back. I clearly understand the financial piece of this, and I clearly understand from the city's perspective, from an economic development standpoint, that could be some very valuable land. And if a portion of the property can be removed, there's a lot that could happen there that could be very, very positive. There's already been some activity in the area. But I would ask that we take an opportunity to look at the clock tower portion. I'm not an engineer, I'm not a carpenter. If you've seen anything I've built, that proves what I'm saying. But the issue is, it's historic, it's iconic. And there are a lot of people that have been a part of that whole complex over the history of that plant since the early 1900s. And it's important that our communities keep some sense of a sense of place, a gathering point, something that is unique to those individual neighborhoods. And I would offer the city has done a fantastic job with examples like this already in place. Firestone Park Stadium is absolutely gorgeous. It's a thrill to drive by there and see those buses from all over the place coming there to play ball. It has never looked as good as it did. I would say even when it was built, it looks fantastic. Saving the Firestone sign and putting it back on the building, very, very iconic. What's been done at Lock 3? What's being done at Summit Lake? Those approaches I would offer to put back as it relates to this project, because what happened with Summit Lake, as you all know, the approach was, what do the residents want? They approached it from the standpoint of asking the ladies and gentlemen who already live in that community what they want. And millions of dollars have been raised. The work that's going on is going to be absolutely amazing. Driving down the expressway, to be able to look over there and see what's being developed there for people who don't even live here, that are going to pass through our city and see this amazing park. It's going to be incredible, and it's going to help the image of the city in terms of bringing people here, whether it's to just come and visit or hopefully to come and live and hopefully bring a business here to the community. But I would offer that the more of these iconic and historic icons that we take down, we're homogenizing our opportunity to bring folks here. I apologize, I thought I had that turned off. To bring folks here. People want to look for unique, and Akron has a lot of unique things that we need to at least make every effort we can to preserve it. I would also offer that for those ladies and gentlemen who want to preserve the clock tower, there's strength in numbers. Come together, be able to and willing to look at ways, but most importantly, the price tag of what we're asking for as well. That's important. We know city dollars are limited, just as county dollars are limited, just as state dollars are limited. But there's strength in numbers. We've proven that with Lock 3. We've proven that with Summit Lake. We've proven that with Firestone Park. We've proven it over in Sharon's community with Reservoir Park and the great stuff that's happening there. These are things that mean something to residents. And the more we erase them, and the more we make a blank, homogenized look to the city, it's to our detriment. I really believe that. And if you look at those cities across the country that are successful, all of them have paid attention to those opportunities. We've already done it here. What I'm asking that we do is continue to do it in that spirit and see where this goes. And as Mr. Smith said, ultimately, if the decision is it's got to come down, then every effort was made to do it. But again, what I would ask is let's measure twice and not cut once, okay? I think that would be a great opportunity for us as a community. And I stand here willing to help in any way that I can, whether that be from the county's perspective or just as a resident, and that would be whatever group comes together to help raise funds, if we can show that there's an opportunity to save the clock tower portion of the building. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. And I do believe we have someone online who wishes to speak in support of the demolition. Steve Charles, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Steve Charles, and I worked at Bridgestone for almost 40 years, led their R&D group for 4 or 5 years, and I've been retired 5. My position in no way necessarily represents Bridgestone or any group of retirees, but I thought for someone who's actually been in that building, lived in that building for 30 years, that you might want to at least hear my view. We're very proud of the new tech center we built up on the hill there in 2012 at the corner of Wilbeth and Main Street. I worked really hard before I retired to move the iconic sign down to the new tire plant on the corner of Wilbeth and Main as well. And so I've been in that building many times since 2012. And it is really, and some of you have been in there, really in bad shape. I think it's basically falling down. Sure, I'd like to keep the clock tower, but I'm not really sure what the value or the use of it is anymore with the facilities we have down the street and the iconic sign. I just think economically speaking, the $5 million delta is just not worth it. The facility, as we all know, has been a tire plant for probably approaching 100 years. And I'm sure there's huge environmental challenges with that facility. And so from my perspective, economically and from a business perspective, it just makes no sense to keep it. So I'm in favor of basically just tearing it down and keeping everything else we have at the Bridgestone facilities down the street. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Charles. Just want to make sure that there's no one else here in chambers who wishes to speak in support of the demolition. Okay, you may approach the podium.
I'm in favor of supporting saving the building.
Okay, so I think we're going to move on to that because I think we're at that place. So now we want to speak, those who want to speak against the demolition, okay?
I'm an interested party in the whole process.
Okay. So at this time, those who want to speak against, you may approach the podium. Yep, against the demolition.
Will I have an opportunity?
Yeah, you can start if you like,
No,
while you're there.
I want to save it.
Okay,
She wants you to go first.
Okay. All right.
yeah.
Well, full disclosure, I haven't met a historic building that I didn't love. But I don't think that's the issue here, and what I want to speak to is how this could be financially sustainable, because if it's truly a $5 million difference, then that decision is a no-brainer. But I had a chance to review the reports that the city generated in terms of feasibility with Hassenstopp and the engineers and so forth, and I think there are a lot of discrepancies, and I think the narrative that the city has created doesn't really follow the data. One example of that is the Hassenstopp report says that the building is in fairly good condition. The city has said that it requires 100% tuck pointing, but the Hassenstopp report says that it only requires 25% tuck pointing on one side of the building. The city has indicated that the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing has been vandalized to the point where it all have to be replaced. That's something that goes without saying with a building and the adaptive reuse of a building like this. You would be gutting the building anyway for the new use that it might be in the future. So that argument is really a non-issue. There are a number of other things, too, that are contradictory. I think probably the biggest thing was the city got 3 bids for the various demolition packages, and that's where the $5 million difference came up. But they didn't use the low bid to tear down the back part of the buildings and save the front building. And I don't think that was done on purpose, but I think it was probably an oversight or a mistake. Actually, the low bid was about $7 million. And if you use that bid, the difference disappeared. That $5 million difference disappears. Also, if you do a review of the scope of work of the demolition, it's typical to think in terms of value engineering. And, and I had to look at this conceptually, so, it's hard to make a very definitive case. But some of it just jumped right off the page at me. There's at least $4 million in scope that could be adjusted and still end up with the same outcome. So I think, and that, 4 million, there's probably 4 million plus. I also think that the approach to this project, the projects like this that are successful, are multi-use projects, and I don't know that that was really the focus when the city started on the journey of trying to figure out how to redevelop this thing. The environmental is a big problem, and I talked to one of my environmental consultants, and I had him, superficially review the data that the city had generated with their reports and everything. And he said there are ways to mitigate the environmental situation and bring it up to a residential standard. He said, of course, that costs money, and the question is always, well, how much is it going to cost? And nobody ever wants to tell you for sure, but I managed to get out of him the fact that it would be, without him really knowing anything, and it's really not fair to quote him, but I got him to say, well, what's an order of magnitude? And he said, probably within 6 figures. So to me, on a project like this, 6 figures is a very doable number. And I think it's worth it to, try and consider bringing it up to a residential standard and having that part of a bid package and spend the money in that way. So, there's so many variables in these reports, and I say this from a level of experience. I've been doing the adaptive reuse of historic buildings for 25 years as general contractor. So I've seen a lot of different circumstances, and the one thing that's unique about these things is that every building is unique, and that's what makes it interesting and keeps the work fulfilling for me. I think that, and I've been involved with 2 transformational projects, big projects. So I have some, and even though every project is different, I have a pretty strong sense of, how these things work and, what the possibilities can be. But this is one of Akron's truly magnificent landmarks, and it would be such a shame to lose it. And the possibilities are very great. And I'm not saying maybe that it shouldn't be torn down, but I think every effort should be made to save it. And I think the economics are there to justify it if people will just sit down, the design professionals and the engineers, and maybe a contractor who understands this stuff, and sort through all the details and really give it thoughtful consideration. And I think just as my friend from the county, I really enjoyed listening to him talk because, he was, as I listened, he was saying the exact same things that I was thinking coming in here from a cultural and heritage standpoint. And I think of these development potentials as centers of gravity. And there's Goodyear. Look at the amazing things that project has done for Goodyear Heights and the Akron community in general. Goodrich. And now we have one that was done a number of years ago, Quaker Square, being re-enlivened. This is really what makes Akron unique. And we want to attract businesses and industry to come to our city, but when the businesses look at the financial incentives, but they also want to know what the quality of life is. And they want to, as you were saying, come to a city or an environment where it's going to be interesting, it's got a cool factor. The city hasn't erased all its personality and just left with a bunch of vacant lots. And we've torn enough buildings down. It's just, and certainly to even think about tearing Firestone down without really doing serious due diligence, I think, we might be making a huge sacrifice. So I agree, pump the brakes makes a lot of sense. And, I would hope that you could create a study period for this. I would really hope that you make a real commitment to saving the building, but at the very least, create a study period to make sure that you let council make informed decisions and that they have all the information that they need to make an intelligent decision that's actually going to be the best thing for Akron, not just a short-term, low-hanging fruit. And I know that money is a huge issue and the money is in place to do this, but I don't think that should be the only consideration. I think we have to think into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And sir, could you please give us your name for the record?
Yeah. Dana Noel. I live at 601 Weber Avenue here in Akron.
Thank you, Mr. Noel.
I apologize.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pamela Pinckney. Apostolate is my title of which I operate, so Pamela is sufficient. We don't come here today as those who have no hope. We have a common interest in this room, which is the history and the foundation of the Firestone building. It has not been occupied for 10 years, which would give the allowance for varmint and other damages to the building. Its memories are goods, and the works will never be unnoticed or forgotten. But we have to consider some things. I'm Pamela, and as you all know, I've been seeking the presidential seat to change the tone of this nation, to make it a new tone in this nation. And I'm hearing some things before I go to my notes. And I'm seeing some things. I'm wondering, Council President, council members, and all in the room, and I'm going to give you a copy of this for the attorney for the city, and any attorney who would like to see this. I don't see any black contractors. I don't see any black people, black, brown, multiracial. I don't see any women at the table for these decisions in reference to the life of this building or its destruction. I know that if it is decided that this building be torn down and demolished, I don't want it replaced with vape shops, marijuana dispensaries, places for guns, drugs, and alcohol to be exchanged. Councilman Wilhite and Mr. Smith made some very good ideas of things that it can be done with. If you do decide to tear it down, neither do I want it to remain there to be an eyesore to the community. Yes, we are concerned about its antiquity. We are concerned about the history that goes with it, just as we would hold on to the history of our family if our family members had done something that carried out the measure of time. Should it be maintained? We do have the money here in Akron, Cuyahoga, Summit County, and the United States to maintain this building, to update its plumbing, to help them get employment opportunities, and to help them maintain and preserve building codes. We have money for everything, so we have money for that. I would like to know the plan and the vision for this matter, since you're bringing it to our attention. It is time for us to unite on one front to build communities, not having the community at odds with the council and the leadership. We don't need any more division among us. I want to take our city, our county, our state, our nation in a new direction. I don't want us to keep coming here and people are angry because their buildings are here today and gone tomorrow. I want a clear vision stated to the public. If you tear this building down, what will you actually replace it with? How will it be economically sound for the community? Who will benefit from it? Who will you use for the process? Will it be only white people? Will it only be males? Will it be inclusive of black, brown, and multiracial, and even Native American people? And will it be inclusive of women in making decisions? It's time for this city, this county, this country to move in another direction, a new direction, because we don't come in this room as ones of hope. We come in here to see what we can do to make things better for each other. Thank you for your time and your attention. I have got to go, so I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Apostolette.
If you need to reach me, I'm at 330-428-9191. Here's a copy for the attorney for the city. And any attorney in the process who would like to speak to me, I would be glad to have a conversation with you for some solutions.
I'm William Reynolds, 421 Crestwood, Akron. Council members, administration members, employees, and fellow Akronites. I've prepared a statement, but first I want to say today it's history, 24 years after 9/11, and we're here arguing about a building, about history. We are here today at a crossroads between our past and our future. In our city, history is not just written in books, it is carved into brick, steel, and stone. It is in the walls of our factories, in the storefronts and our neighborhoods, and in the symbols that remind us of who we are. And standing all among them is the Firestone Clock Tower. That tower is not just part of a building. It is a living monument to the men and women who built Akron with their hands, their sweat, and their determination. It is a symbol of our identity, the rubber capital of the world, the birthplace of innovation, and the home of working-class families who dreamed big and changed the world. Some may argue the preservation is too costly, that progress demands demolition, that the tower is simply an old structure. But I say this, what is the cost of erasing our history? What is the cost of tearing down a landmark that connects generations, that reminds us where we came from, that tells the story of Akron every visitor who passes by? If we lose the clock tower, we lose more than bricks and mortar. We lose part of ourselves. We lose pride of place, the anchor of memory, the inspiration for future generations. We send a message that our heritage is disposable, that our story is not worth keeping. That is happening far too much here in Akron, just saying. But I believe Akron is better than that. I believe we understand that the value of preserving our history cannot always be measured in dollars. It must be measured in identity, in culture, in pride, in the roots that hold us steady as we grow toward the future. We're celebrating our bicentennial here, and we're talking about tearing down history. So I stand before you and say, I don't care about the cost. We must preserve the Firestone Clock Tower. We must treat it not as an obstacle, but as an opportunity to invest in our heritage, to honor our workers, to strengthen our community, and to give future generations a visible reminder of what Akron has always stood for: resilience, innovation, and unity. As I've heard other people speak today, I'm disconcerted that the efforts to potentially save the building, or the clock tower at least, doesn't seem to have been done. Seems like we're cutting corners and we're being lazy. Let us not be the generation that allowed our history to be erased. Let us be the generation that said our past matters, our people matters, and our landmarks matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Is there anyone else wishing to speak against?
Hello, Mark Schweitzer. I'm a lifelong resident of Akron, also a member of the Urban Design Historic Preservation Commission. Just to clarify and just to reiterate a few items, the city mentioned that developers were brought in to look at this building and nothing really could be done with it. Anything was really feasible. But the fact is, when they brought these people in, we were told that they were looking at the whole building, not just the front section out in the one. So they had a huge structure to look at, trying to find some, uses for it. It makes sense. I can understand that there was probably no practical use for that, but they were not, at that time, they were not looking at just the building number one that includes the clock tower. When the city approached us to get the original certificate of approval for the demolition for the back three sections of the building, it was kind of contingent on the fact that the city would go ahead and try to find some developers to develop that front portion of the building. As far as we're aware, that was never done. Been in the building. We did our tour of the building, and while Again, as Dana had mentioned, there's just some discrepancies in the engineering reports and what we've been told. That building, while there are some damaged areas, obviously a roof and thing, it's a reinforced concrete structure built, about over 100 years ago. It's not going anywhere. It's really solid, and that's whoever's going to demolish that building, whether it's the three back portions, I mean, that would be shown in the difficulty of demolishing that building. It would take a long time and a lot of effort. So again, just to reiterate those factors, but I think another thing that's important here is like a lot of the neighborhoods in Akron, most of the neighborhoods in Akron have some kind of anchor, some kind of identity. And this is something that, again, as it's been pointed out today, it's important for the city to have each of these neighborhoods to have something as an anchor. We have in some of the neighborhoods like, West Akron, you have Highland Square, Kenmore, you have a great commercial district. What they've done in East End is a great anchor for Middlebury and Goodyear Heights. It really helps. And I think, Firestone Park, this would be a nice anchor for that area as well if we could find, a use for it. I just would ask that, we make some more effort to do that. Also, I think this is an opportunity to look at not just the city, but the owners of these properties, these historic properties that aren't being used, that are empty and vacant. I think we need to take some additional measures, and I know we've done some the last few years, but to be better stewards of these buildings. We've seen a lot of situations where, they've come in, they've been vandalized. Yeah, it takes a lot of effort and vigilance to, keep people out of the building and try to protect them. But I think we need to refocus that effort and, send that message out that, if you are a steward of an older building like this, we really need to try to take good care of it and preserve it for future generations and help preserve the identity of the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council, members of the public. I come before you not just as an activist for equality in Akron. I am also an enormous history buff. I love history from the ancient to the modern. And I am also a granddaughter of history preservists. I myself own one of the older my parents owned one of the older homes in Akron, and I am still working to preserve that home that was also empty for 10 years and had a squatter situation in the meantime because it was not looked after. It is a long-term problem. It is not a quick and easy fix. But history and the value of history is immeasurable. When the Cathedral of Notre Dame burned, nobody balked at whatever the cost to replace, fix, and adequately restore that history for that city. Measures are being taken all over to preserve our history. Why is the city of Akron so quick to demolish it? We stand here arguing about an iconic landmark in Akron when not long ago this year we were asking what to do about the great blight of erasing our history. And Council, I am talking about the infamous highway to nowhere that divided our city and erased immeasurable amounts of generational history in our community. Those that do not remember their past are doomed to repeat it. We cannot allow another highway to nowhere debacle to happen here in Akron. We're talking about a $5 million difference between saving part or none of a historic landmark. I ask you, what is the cost to future generations. And that cost is undetermined. So when I ask you, in the face of $5 million versus an unknown generational disaster, is $5 million worth it? Absolutely. We preserved the battlefield of Gettysburg. We have preserved countless old neighborhoods in this country. Up in Cleveland, there's an old factory that was repurposed to a farm market. That's not hard to do here. And it would be a good purpose that would serve the neighborhood around it. There are so many things that could be done to repurpose this location and preserve the history. I'm begging you, council, don't put a price tag on our history. Preserve it, respect it, learn from it, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dan Sarvis. I live at 969 Margate Drive, Akron, Ohio. Proud Akronite. I was born in St. Thomas Hospital, which was recently ripped to the ground. So that makes me a person who is sensitive to ripping buildings down. I started working in downtown Akron in the early 90s. I worked to restore, repurpose, and renovate buildings in downtown Akron. I did that for 7 years. Then I worked for a specialty construction company for 15 years. Then I came back to Akron and have been working over the last 10 years to restore historic structures in downtown Akron. Worked on 14 of them at the last count. The person who said the building systems that are torn out of the building by vandals is a problem. And then the other person who countered and said that that would have to be done for any restoration, renovation, and repurposing of the building anyway. That's true. A new use of that building would require new electrical, new plumbing, new HVAC. All of that is part of what developers know coming into a project. That's not a surprise to anybody. They don't walk in and say, "Oh, somebody pulled the wire out of here. I'm not going to do this project." As a matter of fact, they look for projects where abuse has happened and they can turn a building around. Give it that new life that inspires people to want to be there, to want to come there, to want to do business there, to want to live there. And the Firestone headquarters has that opportunity to inspire entrepreneurs, young urban pioneers, neighborhood residents of Firestone Park, the entire community of Akron, South Akron especially. That building stands as literally a generational opportunity for saving our history, as has been eloquently stated throughout this day. So I won't repeat these comments because they're so true. Repeating them would be of service, but I don't need to do that because they stand on their own. What I do need to say is I've learned a lot throughout my career in working in the restoration industry, if you will, and it's my professional opinion that this building is of value, that it has generational wealth in the foundation, in the walls, in the floors, in the interior and exterior of this building that is worth saving. I believe our annual capital budget in the city of Akron is somewhere in the neighborhood of $357 million. So when we're talking about, it was mentioned that maybe there's a way of saving money in the demolition of the back part of the project, which I support. I actually have driven and walked the property, and I believe that the best solution is to remove the rear manufacturing portions of the building and save the front office tower, clock tower, administrative portion of the building. There's a variety of elegant ideas floating around from people I've spoken to on how you could create roof terraces and places for people to live in that facility as you carve out a new look for it and a new use. There's many opportunities to really review it creatively. I think when we heard earlier that the gentleman from engineering said we were tasked to look at the demolition of that, there's your key. What's the task at hand? Is the task at hand to look at a vision of what this property can become, or is the task at hand looking to the demolition of this building? If we focus on the demolition, guess what? We're going to come up with a plan for demolition. If we focus on restoring the building and what those opportunities look like, we might come up with a different solution. Throughout life, I've heard people say, Stan Hewitt was once going to be torn down. Quaker Square recently was going to be torn down. All sorts of facilities were going to be torn down. I heard Playhouse Square in Cleveland was going to be turned into parking lots. All those have been proven over time to be extremely valuable to the city that they reside in as an opportunity for economic regeneration. So I propose that we pump the brakes, great phrase, pump the brakes, look at the task of restoring this building in some of the ways that have been discussed today, some of the opportunities that have been discussed today, and not look solely at the opportunity to take taxpayer money to tear down this building from the state of Ohio, but to create a business opportunity from Akron, for Akron, in Akron, and by Akronites. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else here in the chamber who wishes to speak against?
President, Council, Administration, my name is Dr. Daniel Van Epps. I'm Executive Director of the Northeast Ohio Regional Improvement Corporation. We're a community improvement corporation based in Canton. We do economic development in the Northeast Ohio region. My doctorate degree is in technology education with a focus on systems analysis. I have a 2-page paper I can quickly read. I've got 18 copies if anybody's interested in those following along. Here. Quickly, dear Council and City Administration, the Northeast Ohio Regional Improvement Corporation would like to suggest a viable reuse for the former Firestone factory versus its demolition for your consideration. Numerous industries in the Akron area once owned and operated in-house electricity generating power plants. I have a Google Earth layer of those power plants, and that's available upon request if you know how to operate Google Earth. Most of those, usually coal-burning power plants, have been discontinued and liquidated, and almost all of the city's power must now be imported from other, often distant sources. The Firestone building was a heavy-duty factory that should be able to host significant amounts of power generating and storage equipment even before being expanded vertically, such as within the vacant areas between its wings. Primary power could be generated by natural gas fuel cells, not the gas burners that you hear about today. These are fuel cells. One fuel cell provider will be delivering its cells to a new large data center within 90 days of the order being placed. Metro RTA had Enbridge improve its gas service at its new bus refueling center across CSX's tracks from Firestone, and that gas line could be extended to Firestone. Firestone could also host backup batteries, highly sought by electric utilities to help keep their grids running properly and by users to keep their operations running. Solar panels could be installed on Firestone's roof too, with the power aggregated by the batteries. Firestone's power users and uses could include the city itself, First Energy and other power providers, Metro RTA's electric buses, electric vehicles including electric semi-trucks. Waste heat from the fuel cells could be available for steam, thermal heat district, area production requiring heat, etc. But the prime user could be a local public hyperscale data center. In February 2025, my organization proposed to the University of Akron and the state of Ohio to keep Quaker Square and repurpose the hotel silos into an 850,000 square foot hyperscale public data center. The expected multi-gigawatt load could have been connected by a new 15-foot plus diameter 2-mile long utility tunnel constructed deep under CSX's tracks. The city has experience with such large tunnels. City administration and council were provided with copies of our proposals back then. The offer is still available to Quaker Square's developers should their feasibility study identify challenges to reopening the hotel that might be relied upon to cross-subsidize the rest of Quaker Square. A public data center could instead help cross-subsidize a new purpose-built hotel or renovate another Cascade area tower into a hotel further away from CSX's main line. Our analyses showed the East Palestine burn zone would have extended up to the hotel's front desk had it occurred near Quaker Square. This hyperscale public data center could be available to all providers of artificial intelligence, high-performance computing, polymers research and development, and to public users. Hyperscale data centers require gigawatts of electricity, far beyond what the Akron area could provide, much less afford to lose to one user. Thus, data center providers are increasingly investing in their own power plants too. This model would significantly change Firestone's repurposing finances should data center investors consider using Firestone for a power plant. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman said the other week, for its operation to keep scaling, OpenAI needs a lot more graphic processing units. This is one of Altman's top priorities. Quote, you should expect OpenAI to spend trillions of dollars on data center construction in the not very distant future, he confidently told the room. And I have the citation URL. That's one AI provider. There are many others with additional trillions of dollars available from willing investors. Goldman Sachs is increasingly advocating a circular economy that includes repurposing existing buildings versus building new facilities, especially in greenfields. Firestone customer Ford Motor Company recently repurposed a similarly failing 1.2 million square foot Michigan Central Railroad station in Detroit for its $940 million $940 million over 6 years as an innovation hub and for other uses. If Ford in Detroit can save that historic building with sound reuses, then Firestone could and should likewise be feasibly repurposed. Governance models could include the city owning and operating the power plant, thereby retaining control over it and keeping revenues in-house. AES could be contracted to operate it per their franchise for the city's thermal system. A nonprofit operation model is possible too. The desired model should help promote economic retention and development efforts and ensure electric power security within the city. The next steps could be for council to consider postponing Firestone's demolition and to create a new committee to further study this proposal. Then the city needs to ask the AI, high-performance computing, and other large power users if they are interested in obtaining gigawatts of electricity a hyperscale public power plant could provide. Given the state of the nation's electric market today, they should be quite interested. Thank you for your time. I can be contacted at your convenience at the following address, If you want a digital version of this, please contact me so you don't have to type this in. Questions or anything?
No, not at this time. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Is there anyone else here in the chambers who wishes to speak against? I do believe we have someone joining us online. Jim Loveman, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
And can you see? I'm trying to turn on my camera, but it doesn't seem to want to turn on. I don't know if I don't know if anyone's missing seeing me, but I think I'm trying to turn it online. But I'm happy to go as I am.
Okay, yeah, we don't see you.
Oh, geez, I'm not. You know, I'm sorry. I don't know what else to do other than to click the video button here. I keep turning it on, and just doesn't seem to be happening. So I'm.
You can proceed.
Okay, I will gladly do that. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak here, giving me the opportunity. Again, my name is James Loveman, aka call me Jim. I am a partner in the Akron Phoenix Development Corporation. We're all affiliated with a Philadelphia-based development company called Miramar Realty. Hearing Mr. Volman tell stories of the Firestone property going back to 2012 brought back a lot of memories. We worked very closely in concert with the city and the Summit County government to acquire and redevelop the warehouse building on the Firestone campus, which is now the Russ Pry County office building. Working in concert with the city and the county, we were able to bring together about $21 million of capital to invest into that building. When I speak about this building, it's very personal to me. It's a huge asset to me personally. It means everything to me, my family, and our well-being. And so I'm very, very vested in this this piece of Akron's history, and I am in Akron constantly, all the time. The city has become a, sort of second home to me over the last 10 years. So everything I say today is with an eye towards my stake in this property, wanting to benefit our investment there, wanting to protect it, and I think, quite frankly, in many ways, be working in concert with the city, because I think our goal here, my goal in all of this, is to make sure that the economic development and the environment around our investment there is in the best position, and we do the most to see this property grow and this section of Akron grow and prosper. Of course, I love the architectural preservation of buildings. My father was an architect. I wouldn't be in this particular lane of real estate development if I didn't love it. I might be developing shopping plazas out by the highway, but I do historic preservation because I do love this stuff. But I want to talk today about the economics and the realities about moving forward with this development, why I think it's in the city's best interest and our best interest to proceed with the 3/4 demolition, but leave the front wings standing. I want to talk about this in two different lanes. We have short-term concerns about the expanding the demolition further, and then I have thoughts on the long-term prospects of redeveloping the site and why I think it's best if we leave the building standing. Because we do support, as I said, we do support the already approved demolition. We've been involved with this property for 10 years. We've brought multiple companies. We have tried, believe me, I know how hard it is to develop things in Akron. We have brought companies to this building. And as someone said earlier, it was just too big. Nobody needs an 800,000 square foot building in Akron. That's just too much. And companies who would say, maybe we could use the front portion, but what's all this stuff attached to it? We see this as an opportunity to right-size the building for its best chance to be redeveloped. So let me talk about the short and long-term concerns. In the short term, we have a lease with the Summit County government in the Russ Pry building. The county has recently this month brought back all employees to work 100% in the office, so our parking lots are full again. We have contractual obligations to provide parking to the county on several sides of this building. Even the 3/4 demolition plan is going to cause a lot of parking gymnastics we'll have to jump through, but I think they can be solvable. Expanding the demolition to 100% of the building makes those problems, in my mind, insurmountable. I don't know how we make that work. So I think to some degree, obligated on behalf of our tenants and my contractual obligations to them to object to the expansion of this demolition. That's one front. In the longer term, though, like I said, my goal here is to make sure that our investment in the Russ Pry building is successful in the long term. And that means seeing the site of the Firestone factory building redeveloped into a vibrant, successful economic generator. And at this point, we have two paths we can go down. We can either shrink this 800,000 square foot building down to what I will call a right-sized 200,000 square foot building that, very pointedly, I will point out, will retain all of its historic tax credit eligibility, which equates to somewhere between 45 and 55% of all the improvement costs that go into a building. Or we can knock it down and be left with yet another empty lot that has, as far as I can tell, no particular financial incentives for an investor to invest in. It's just like every other empty lot in the city. So there we are. There's our choice. I see the opportunity to, and if you need evidence, I would point to two facts. Number one is if somebody says, things can't be redeveloped on this site, I'd point to the Russ Pry building as evidence that it can happen. If it's a right-sized building, it's 200,000 square feet. We redeveloped in the Russ Pry building, and the building that will be left standing, if we keep the front wings up there, is 200,000 square feet, the same size. I know it has its challenges. The shape is unusual, et cetera. But preserving a building where you can get half of your cost back is an awfully strong incentive. That makes this property special. And if it's demolished and we have an empty lot, there's frankly nothing special about that empty lot. And I'm afraid of what that would do to my property, my investment in the Russ Pry building in the long term. And again, I'm not here to fight against the city, but I'm here advocating for what I sincerely think is the best path forward to long-term redevelopment prospects. And I have not seen or heard anything from the city that would make me think that they have a plan to make that empty lot economical. So I would advocate that we proceed with the 3/4 demolition plan. But as several people have said earlier, we pump the brakes at that point and see what we can do with a 200,000 square foot building that has half its cost coming back in tax credits. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If there's no one else wishing to speak against, we will close our public hearing. Council, are there any comments or questions? Councilman Kamer, you want to be first as ward council person?
Thanks, Madam President. I don't know if it's good to go first or hear from my colleagues, but I'll go ahead and go first since this is in Ward 7. First of all, I want to thank all the speakers that came down today. You could be doing a million other things, but you chose to come down here and to try to preserve history, and I really appreciate that, and I appreciate the folks online too. I also want to thank leadership, my council president, my vice president, and President Pro Tem. We've had a few conversations over the last couple of weeks, and I want to thank you for that, because you reached out to me when nobody else did from the administration at that time. So I appreciate that. The administration did eventually reach out to me in the 11th hour, so I do appreciate that because it was a good conversation, but I just wish I was brought up to speed and in the loop of what was going on. 2 months ago, when I heard about the proposal coming to the urban design, I had to make a phone call. Nobody called me. The mayor goes around saying that he's transparent. I would like for him to be transparent on this issue. No town hall was held in Ward 7 or in the city. I think we need to really pump the brakes. I think you're going to hear a lot of that today. And really get the input from the citizens and see what the best decision is at the end of the day. For about 10 years now, I've been being told that we were going to save the whole front of this building. And if we couldn't develop the back of the building, knock down the back of the building. And that's something I support. and I currently support if we move forward. But I've always been told we were going to save the whole front of that building, the facade part. I've taken 2 tours of that building over my tenure being on council, just so people know. No matter what, I believe the city should really look at this, and we're going to have to spend money. We're not going to erase history in Akron. We're not going to erase the identity of South Akron and Firestone Park. So I'm asking the city administration to do whatever they can do in the next 15 days. I believe we only have 15 days. No matter what, moving forward, I will not support this legislation. But I'm asking the city to do whatever they can to make sure that we do what we can before we actually erase that history of that building. I really think there is an option. You know, we just had a person just speak, and the Russ Pry building is a beautiful example of how that community turned that building into something where now we have jobs and people moving and going in the community. The only thing I'll say before I end is I'm asking my colleagues on council. I understand $5 million is a lot of money. It is a lot of money, I'll be honest with you. I'm not asking you to support $5 million price tag to save a building, but I'm asking you for your assistance and your help, not just to help Ward 7 out, but to help where we all, why we're here. We've all heard the stories. We all have them living in our wards, in our city, about the foundation that this building and the other rubber factories that created for us to live here, for us to grow here, for us to work here, etc. My father is one, and I'm not standing here because my father worked in that building, but he was a blue-collar worker, just like a lot of the stories that we hear all the time. And Firestone provided for 4 of us children and a stay-at-home mom. I hear those stories all the time. In the last couple of weeks, I've been hearing a lot more of those stories about grandfathers and grandpas and grandmothers, and a lot of the residents that stayed in Akron because their relatives worked in that building. So all I got to say is I'm asking my colleagues to help support me in regards to trying to preserve the building and preserve history. And the other avenue that we can take is if the building has to come down, and some folks might not agree with me on this one. That's all the time I got.
We'll give you a few more just to finish your thought.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I forgot about the time limit. So to wrap this up is no matter what, the city's going to have to save history. I'm not going to ask you. I'm going to let you know you have to preserve history with this building. Even if it's creating a park. Now, I know some folks might say, oh, that's the last thing we need in the city is a park. But you could take some of that building and the clock tower. It seems like the clock tower is the major topic here. And you could create a park right there, and you could call it the Firestone Plant 1 Park. You can incorporate a lot of history from that building, including the clock tower. And maybe some of the functions of what was incorporated in that building over the last 100+ years. You could create a park where we could have trees, a little walking path, benches. Trust me, we have a lot of successful businesses down there that their employees would love the opportunity to take their lunch break, visit with their loved ones, have lunch. It's APV, Summit Job and Family Services, Firestone, Tire Center, Tremonti, Myers, On Track, the county sewer department, and I could go on and on and on, but for time. So basically the bottom line is I'm telling the city that if you can't preserve the building, can't save the front of the facade, you're gonna have to start thinking, and you're gonna have to save some history and maybe create some kind of park down there on the corner of Cole Avenue and Main Street, and that park can obviously lead to future development. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Fusco, did I see your hand?
I was going to let everybody else speak. Yeah, just that I want to thank all those that, and I'm not facing you because we're supposed to face them, but the president making this is a tough decision for all of us here. We all have landmarks. We all have something in our districts, in our wards. And this is a big one in terms of Firestone, just like Goodyear, you know. So it's going to be a challenge, and we're going to educate ourselves the best we can so we can make the best possible decision that we can make. And I'm glad Mr. Kamer mentioned the Pride Building. It can work if we can find somebody to work with. That's the key, is finding someone. This one has been on the market, we understand, for at least 10 years or so, if not more. I think in 2014, whenever it was placed on the National Register of Historic Places, we got it right. Okay, because it is obviously a huge part of not only Akron's history, Ohio, the United States, globally, one could argue. The economic piece, though, is the biggest challenge, and we're hearing $5 million. That's being challenged. We have a lot of questions. I know I have a lot of questions, and I'm sure my colleagues do as well. Based on what we had heard, we have a limited amount of time, unfortunately, to make this decision. 2 weeks. I have a couple questions, though, if it's okay. One is, for the law department, if one would want to appeal a decision that council would make on this, okay, is there a recourse, an appeal recourse that one could take as a resident or what have you?
To answer your question, the Ohio Revised Code typically applies to decisions of a body like this, so there is an appeal process under the Ohio Revised Code.
Thank you, thank you. We're unfortunately, we're certainly in the driver's seat, but we have a limited amount of time to pump the brakes. So I just wanted for us to consider, for all of Akron to consider that piece of it. The other question is, I understand, I may be wrong, but I want to make sure we understand, and the cards are out on the table, that we have a state or federal grant, some kind of a grant for raising this property, I understand. Is that accurate? And how long do we have on that?
Yes, this was part of the state demo grant that we received, and the original time frame was to be wrapped up actually already. There's been an extension, and we're still negotiating with the state on the terms of that contract.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so okay, that leaves us with that. These buildings, these places, the historic nature of it all is kind of a soul of a city, if you think about it, to a large extent. And we all have passion for those places that are relatives, that are family, that are friends. You know, there's a passion in all of us. And this council has made decisions in favor of preserving buildings, structures, places, and also against. So this is a weighty one. There's no question about it. But I'm sure we'll do the best we can. If there's no one else that wishes to speak, I'm happy to pull the committee to refer this item, but I want to give them an opportunity before I would pull the committee, so.
Yes, thank you. Councilman Hanna?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to thank those that came out for and oppose the demolition of the Firestone, 1200 Firestone Parkway. And also, I'd like to thank Dan and my colleague for mentioning South Akron. Firestone, 1200 Firestone Parkway is in the shadow of South Akron. I lived on Andrews Street in the shadow of Firestone Tire and Rubber Company. I can remember the smell of the rubber coming from Firestone Plant 1. I can remember the soot that used to fall on my mother's white sheets after she washed them and hung them out to dry. You probably don't remember that. I can remember working in Plant 1. I worked at Plant 1 on the dock. But what I remember the most was the iconic clock that still stands today. That clock would remind me when I looked up at it, I had 2 minutes to clock in before I was late. If we can't save Plant 1, it would be a great idea to save and preserve that gigantic clock, because if we don't, time will slip away from Plant 1. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman Hanna. Councilwoman Connor?
I'm going to stand with my colleague, Councilman Kamer. Coming from a historic neighborhood, Goodyear Heights, we have fought many a fight to save iconic buildings and structures in that neighborhood. There are things you do for money, and there are things you do for your heart. And saving these buildings touches all of our hearts. That clock tower, if there is any way to save it, we need to save it. It's iconic. It's what people remember. It's the heart and soul of their neighborhood. And to do this without the community engagement, without the town halls, we hear all the time about doing things for people, but not with people. This is our chance to rally with those residents. Give them the opportunity to be heard. We hear it all the time. They want to be heard about this. This is their history. This is where they come from. And to take that away from them without holding the brakes and giving them a chance and a voice would be terrible. So I'm going to stand with my colleague, Councilman Kamer, and fight the fight for history.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Kamer, did you have another comment?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say one more thing is, as we move forward, I do believe that the city can really reach out there to potential donors, maybe our folks over at the county maybe can help, and if we can raise enough money, maybe we can cut our $5 million in half or more than half, and then we can go from there. I really think we should just look at all those options, and I'm not discrediting anyone that works for the city and the staff, departments. It's just, you know, my colleague said it perfect. This is history, and we have to make sure we get it right before it's just erased. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Kamer. I did just have one comment. Again, I too want to stand in support of Councilman Kamer. And it is kind of this very somber feeling as we are celebrating our bicentennial, the rich history of our city, and we're actually talking about tearing it down and erasing a big piece and part of that. And so just really want to ask on the administrative side, because again, you know, we've known that this day was going to come, you know, for a while, and it seems like we should have had some type of plan in place, at least just to preserve just the face of the clock. And I'm just wondering if even just that's an option. Maybe not the whole tower, but if we can at least just explore just the face of the clock. You know, I represent Summit Lake. You know, again, a historical piece in Summit Lake was the pump house. You know, that came down, but with community partners, we came together and we were able to save a piece of the pump.
Thank you, President Somerville. So, you know, just to, I want people to know out there, especially, This is not an easy decision that we're coming to. We have put the time in to evaluate all of our options, right? And this effort, this idea that emerged and that was inserted into the process, to see if we could shore up the back of the front bay and use that as a potential redevelopment opportunity while demolishing the back, that was our Hail Mary, okay? That was our Hail Mary. We felt like if we could produce some savings by not demolishing the whole thing and offset those savings, use the savings offset there to shore up the building, stabilize it, and secure it so that we didn't have the constant police calls and the constant emergency calls that we have out there, that would be worth it, okay? And so that was the process that emerged, and that's what we went through, and that's why we took to the Historic Design Commission last year that request for that particular certificate of appropriateness, which was granted, and then we went through the bidding process, and the savings weren't there, the offsets weren't there. And I appreciate the value of old buildings and our architectural history, and certainly our industrial history. And and I know what can happen, the amazing things that can happen with old buildings, with the right investment. And Dana, I learned that working with you 15, 18 years ago, right? For your construction company on crazy projects that no one thought were possible up in Cleveland. I know that, right? But this requires at least $5 million of public money up front in order to get to that point where we can consider it. $5 million, and we don't have a dedicated source for that in our budget, in our financing. So in order to consider that, we have to borrow money. We would have to add that to our annual allocation of general obligation debt, $5 million. And we borrow about $15 million a year for our capital budget. So are we going to, that's the choice we're looking at. A third of our capital allocation of general obligation debt, twice what we put into our parks every year for this building. So when I say it's a difficult choice, right, it's a difficult choice, but I think that we've arrived at this with this, this question about considering the finances and the implications, and this is where we are. Now, as far as your particular question, and I didn't mean to not, I get going, as you know. So we are evaluating that very thing, right? Is there a way that we can pull some of those architectural features off the facade, hold those in abeyance, and then come back around with a new development and then add those to the features? Because this building, the two buildings together, the Triangle Building and this particular one, right, it was put in the Federal Register as a district, right? And so whatever comes next, it still has to be evaluated as part of a historic district, even if it's ground up, right? And so in order to make that feasible for something new to come along, we would hope that we'd have the opportunity to pull some of those features off the facade and then add them to a brand new, a facade of a brand new building. And now the trick there is that when we think about pulling those pieces off, it's very difficult, right? And so we're talking to the demo contractor about that process and trying to understand how we can do that. And then, if we're able to successfully pull those pieces off, particularly the clock faces, then we will store those, okay? And then hopefully there'll be an opportunity to restore them to the site and make that happen. And Councilman Kamer, rattled off a list of businesses that are in the area. And that's an important context for us to keep in mind as well, right? And about, most of the businesses that we're talking about that have come to that area, right? The investment that has come in there, particularly with that new business park, right, was industrial businesses. Industrial businesses. And this council, 5 years ago, rezoned that area for industry, right? Because we recognized, there was a recognition that that was the future of that area, right? And so I think, and we've seen private investment go in there along the parkway, right? And add jobs, significant number of jobs around there. And so I think there's an opportunity there with a clean site, with a clear site rather, not clean, clear site, to continue that momentum, add more jobs, and then come back around again with these architectural features. and help to restore at least a piece of that architectural history here. Again, we're not recommending this, asking for this lightly. We've really wrestled with this and done our best. And, you know, I sat in your office in, I think it was early July, and we talked this, you know, where we were with this process and discussed how we were wrestling. And so here we are.
Thank you. Councilman Garrett.
Thank you, Madam President. Today, I rise in support of my colleague, Mr. Kamer. I felt his passion for his ward. And similar to my colleague Sharon Connor, Goodyear, Firestone, they go together. We need to do all that we can to support, and once again, I stand in support. Listening to the folks, whether it's Mr. Wilhite, Mr. Smith, Mr. Dana, I felt their passion, even the other folks that came from the community out. It's something that we need to stick together with this colleague on, and like I said, I support it 100%.
Thank you. Councilman Bolden.
You know, this city's logo is a rubber worker. The rubber worker statue is something that is you know, in the middle of downtown that we see all the time. And I'm wondering, has anyone talked to Firestone? I know they're not here, they're in Nashville. Has anyone talked to them? Would they be willing to put up any money to save this history? They have a foundation, I'm sure they do. Goodyear has a foundation. Would they be willing to put up something or maybe match a grant if we could come up with this? Are there ways we can fund this to keep, maybe not the whole building, but the clock tower, something that stands where Firestone started and where one of their rubber plants were for years? Would they be willing to do it? Has anyone reached out to them to find out? Might be an avenue to get some money.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments? If not, Councilman Fusco, will have you to poll your committee.
Yes, thank you. And just one last comment, if you don't mind. And I do. Mr. Kamer and I have had several discussions with this. I've had a lot of discussions with these folks, some of these folks sitting behind me and some out in the crowd. And just want to remind council that, you know, we stand with our colleagues, but in a couple months, we're going to get that capital budget. If it is $5 million, and it sounds like it's up front, there's going to be some sacrifice made in our districts. Is it roads? It sounds like it's capital. Is it roads? Is it parks that are not being maintained as well? You know, there's going to be sacrifice if we choose to go in that direction. Again, a lot of questions. That's why I'm going to pull the committee for time. I wish I could pull them for like a 6-month time, but unfortunately we can't. So Kamer? Aye. Connor? Aye. Boyes?
Aye.
Hannah?
Aye.
Thank you. Report of the committees for time.
Thank you. So time will be granted. If there's nothing else coming before this committee, can we please get a motion for adjournment? If there are no objections, meeting adjourned.
This concludes the live broadcast of Akron City